Look at the size of these two men, Paul Dillett and Phil Heath. Both fourth place? No. Paul Dillett, fourth place at the Olympia, 1994. Should be both fourth place bodybuilders. Just to see the type of competition from 1994 versus 2020, because Phil, he placed third here, but many speculate and figured Hattie Shupin probably should have beat him due to the midsection, things of that nature. I agree. But anyway, this is somewhat of a meter stick, a measuring stick, to see what type of competition the IFBB has to offer. All winners aside, all second and third place bodybuilders aside. But this is just for fun, guys. This is just for fun. Let's go through these poses. I will give you my opinion on who I think would have won if they were able to bring these packages to the Olympia stage. Look at the midsection for Paul Dillett. Oh, hold on a second here. This is a photo shoot. Those biceps of Paul look like they were going to explode all over the place. Let's bring on an on stage. How many times have I said that in videos? Let's bring it on stage. Because it makes a big difference. This is what they look like. You can look like a big muscle head all you want on Instagram. Things of that nature. That's like saying your bench press record is such and such, but you did it by yourself versus a competition bench press record. This is what they look like. They're on stage. They waited in line. They walked out. They put the oil slapstick. You know, they look good. Well, I shouldn't go that far to say that they both look good. Phil Heath, he's a monster. One of the best bodybuilders of all time. But that midsection is way out of whack. And that's why he lost his title. He returned. He's not going to look any different. Lost his title in 2018. If you're new to the sport, you don't know the history. Well, he lost to Sean Roden. And then he came back. Didn't compete in 2019. Competed in 2020 and got third because of his midsection. And Paul Dillett, it would be no different. Paul would beat him in the front double. If we're just looking at one pose at a time, there's just no way out of this one. That says Phil Heath won. He didn't. Paul Dillett wins. Go to the front lat spread photo shoot here for Paul. Can you imagine how long it took them guys to get a somewhat symmetrical front lat spread from Paul? He was probably standing in this position for hours on end. Is this good? Is this good? And then, no, Paul, a little bit down your delt, because he used to hold one delt way too high. I think it was his right delt. But either way, he looks pretty good. He looks aesthetically pleasing. His lats should be wider, I can tell you that, for the size of the guy. Somewhat narrow as far as that's concerned. But the midsection is in check, and versus Phil Heath, I don't know, guys. That is the first two poses. It's hard to ignore the Cassis. And just for you sticklers, this is an onstage. Tilted, thoustly, or it's tilted thusly, not thoustly. One's the other. I don't know. But look at the midsection. He looks pretty darn good. But keep in mind, he was very unsymmetrical in the shot. So nobody's really winning the front lat spread. And Phil's probably losing. But Paul's not winning. Turn to the side for the side chest development. Side chest pose. Photo shoot for Paul. Look at the wheels on this guy. Beating Phil. Can you imagine? Phil's do look a little thicker, though. Hanging hamstring, things of that nature. And again, a photo shoot for good old tall Paul. So here is an on stage. Is this from the... This was from a different event. I don't think this was from the Olympia. But he was pretty close, so we'll just let that slide for now. Delt separation. Both guys have world-class arms. Bicep, tricep, forearms for Phil, delts for Paul. So it's close in that aspect. Phil, he had a big man's chest in 2020. Maybe his biggest and most manly pec development that I've ever seen. So it actually is close, I think, from the side point of view. It's not a brutal beating like most of you would have thought. Paul probably still get an edge. Side tricep, he's not gonna, though. Nope. Nope, not gonna do it, as one of those presidents said. Don't need to mention his name. But either way, guys, it is a situation where Phil, he kind of is getting two back, in a way. Not really, though. That side chest. Out of the first four shots, I would most certainly give an edge to Paul Dillett. And it is more than just the fact that he's beating him. He's losing more than Paul's beating him because of that big casus belly in those first two shots. Let's have a look at the backs and then we'll decide, because it's no secret here. We didn't even have to look at these back shots. Phil is going to beat Paul no matter what. Phil has better condition from behind. Well, Paul's condition's not bad. Look at the glutes there and everything. But Phil is definitely going to dominate symmetry, proportions of the back, and he is. Paul's back's a little bit petite. I got to say, though, it's pretty good for Paul. Kind of a blurry shot. You can't really see the true condition. So I kind of took the liberty of tacking this one on. It is tilted a little bit, but you can clearly see the guy was pretty conditioned. Not as shredded, I don't think, to the diced as your Phils and say your Dorians, even more shredded. You can see the lower back looks a little bit tender. You do the pen test, and I don't think the pen pointer thing would click. It would click for Phil Heath's back, but it looks a little soft in the delts too. For Paul Dillett, monstrous arms though. This guy was ginormous. I think he was focusing in on making the arms look a little too big though, and didn't worry enough about the back development itself. So Phil, yeah, it's not as bad as I thought, but absolutely he's winning. And we don't even really need to look at the rear lat spread. This is from 93. Paul's rear lat spread got worse and worse. Maybe a little more symmetrical over the years, but it was very petite compared to other bodybuilders, the width. And Phil, in 2020, his back was petite also. You compare it with other guys, in particular Hattie Shupin, things of that nature, and he looked very narrow, but he still had that Phil Heath-esque separation, the mountains, ridges, traps. Still looks good. You know, he's beating Paul Dillett. I don't know what that says for your resume. I beat Paul Dillett in a back shot. That's like you beat Ronnie Coleman in a bodybuilding competition. Everybody did at one point or another. But after a certain year, hardly anybody anyway. Here is the abs and thigh to put an end to this one. Well, this is the most muscular. This one exhibits Paul Dillett's dominance. And there's just no way, people. This is bodybuilding. What did Joe Weider say? It has to be health producing. Health producing. That's not producing health. These big casus bellies. Well, he might live to 100 anyway, and I guess he can come out then and say, listen, you whippersnappers, I got a big belly here, and I've lived all you young whippersnappers. But yeah, Phil, no disrespect, big man. But if you're in a bodybuilding competition, head-to-head with a beautiful midsection like this, I'll say it, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Oh, here's the most muscular. Apparently my producer's not giving me any more time in that abs and thigh. Thank you very, very much, Terry. And by the way, it was Terry that provided that voice of the old guy. Well, I talk like this sometimes. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But anyway, Paul Dillett, midsection. I think it's enough, people. And it's not like he's soft. Phil, it's not like he's as sharp as he once was, so the conditioning is kind of close. And Paul is monstrous in the arms. Phil usually making people look like dandelion spores in the arms, but not Paul. Oh, here's the crab. How come Paul didn't do the crab? Something wrong with his back? I guess I'll ask Lee Priest next time I'm talking to him. I say that all the time now. I'll ask Lee Priest next time I'm talking to him. I got a t-shirt made. I'll ask Lee Priest next time I'm talking to him. He lived with Paul. Maybe he did have something wrong with his back. He could have had scoliosis, baby, please. You think? At least he didn't have a triple trouble like Phil Heath did. Gray big bonanza double bubble gut. I'll delete that. So, Phil, as much as I like to say, not too many bodybuilders on the face of this earth could beat any version of Phil. 2020, very vulnerable. Not as sharpest, not as widest in the back. A couple of poses were a little off. In the midsection, maybe at its all-time peak as far as Cassis is concerned. So, Paul Dillett, he's no fluff either. He's no Tinkerbell. Best midsections of any big man of that girth, that weight, that size. Sure. 4th place, 1994. Defeats 3rd place, 2020. Dare I say 4th place would probably beat 4th place, though, if we used Hadman. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. Boom, swing, sing. Have a great one, guys.